Much like the Jedi were hunted down and killed during Order 66, the witch clan of Dathomir called the Nightsisters was hunted down and killed during the Clone Wars. And, similarly to the Jedi, there were quite a few Nightsister survivors that managed to escape the massacre. We'll go over the Nightsisters that survived the attack on their coven in this video. The first we'll discuss is Asajj Ventress, someone I'm sure most people are familiar with. Ventress was a former disciple of Darth Tyrannus, serving as his personal assassin throughout the first half of the Clone Wars. However, Darth Sidious demanded Tyrannus to kill Ventress because of her growing power and involvement. Tyrannus obliged, but Ventress survived his attempt at killing her and retreated back to the Nightsisters. After surviving the Separatist attack on the Nightsisters, Ventress became a bounty hunter and struck out on her own, eventually working alongside Boba Fett and the Krait's Claw. At one point, she allied herself with the Jedi Quinlan Vos and together tried to kill Darth Tyrannus. Unfortunately for them, they failed, and Ventress died sacrificing herself for Quinlan. Quinlan returned Ventress to Dathomir and laid her to rest in the waters of the Nightsister lair. However, years later, Ventress would return, somehow still alive and assisting the clone of Jango Fett known as Omega to discover her potential to use the Force. The next survivor we'll discuss is Merrin, a survivor of the Nightsister massacre who stayed behind on Dathomir. She allied herself with the Night Brothers until a Jedi survivor of Order 66 crash-landed on the planet. This Jedi, named Taron Malicos, fell to the dark side and managed to usurp leadership of the Night Brothers. It wasn't until another Jedi survivor named Cal Kestis arrived and helped Merrin defeat Taron Malicos. Then, Merrin decided to leave the planet Dathomir with Cal Kestis and joined him in his fight against the Galactic Empire. They journeyed together for years until eventually she went her separate way to explore the universe on her own terms. This eventually led her to discover the Hidden Path, a group of Jedi sympathizers who helped other survivors hide from the Empire. She joined the Path and eventually reunited with Cal Kestis. Another survivor named Shelish lived on Jas Krill, a moon in the Anowat sector. Shelish had left Dathomir when she was very young, and consequently survived the Nightsister massacre due to her absence. While living in the Anowat sector, she had a daughter who grew up to become an assassin named Deathstick. Deathstick would become the leader of a secret society called the Kohun, and would become involved with the criminal syndicate Crimson Dawn. Shelish would visit Dathomir many times throughout her life to understand what became of the other Nightsisters. Eventually, while living on Jas Krill during the Iron Blockade, a smuggler would visit Shelish and request to learn more about the Force and Nightsister magic, to which she obliged. Shelish was primarily seen in the mobile game Uprising, however that game is no longer available. Up next, we'll discuss Morgan Elsbeth. Morgan is interesting because she appeared human, rather than the traditional pale-skinned Dathomirian. She was, however, born to the Nightsisters on Dathomir. After the massacre of the Nightsisters, Morgan lost her distinct tattoos. The specifics regarding how the Nightsisters came to be and what actually is the source of their tattoos isn't specifically known. There's still more to learn. Perhaps they're all human and the tattoos and magics are what give them their appearance. I don't know completely. I feel like I have more questions than answers whenever more Nightsister content comes out. Morgan survived the massacre and was taken in by another clan of witches on Dathomir. Eventually, though, many years later, she became the ruler of a village called Caladan on the planet Corvus. While there, she developed plans for a new type of TIE fighter called the TIE Defender, which piqued the interest of Admiral Thrawn. Thrawn approved of her design and endeavored to mass-produce her TIE Defenders. Before he could do so, Thrawn was engaged in a battle with a rebel cell and essentially kidnapped to another galaxy. It wasn't until after the Galactic Civil War when Morgan Elsbeth allied herself with a former Jedi-turned-mercenary and other Imperial forces and sought to bring Thrawn back to the known galaxy. She was successful in finding him and was given the power of the Nightsisters again by 3 elder Nightsister witches that had joined Thrawn. This power brought back Morgan's Nightsister tattoos. With her newfound power, Morgan fought against Ahsoka Tano in an attempt to buy Thrawn enough time to escape back to the known galaxy. She succeeded, but was killed by Ahsoka in battle. The next survivor we'll discuss is the Night Sister named Yenna. Yenna was also interesting in that she was created by magic, by another witch named Falta. The leader of the Night Sisters, Mother Talzin, took notice of Yenna because of the unprecedented circumstances surrounding her birth, and adopted her into the Night Sister clan. Yenna lived with the Night Sisters for years, until the Clone Wars happened and the Separatists launched their assault on the clan. She managed to survive the massacre because she was hidden away by Mother Talzin and sent off-world. Yenna's original creator, the witch named Falta, searched for Yenna after the massacre. Falta was not aligned with the Night Sisters and initially did not approve of Yenna joining them in the first place. Falta left Dathomir on her search for Yenna and received a lead that pointed her to the Mid-Rim. The last survivor we'll look at is a character who exists in a canonical gray area. The witch in question is named Jerserra, and she was introduced as a character in a role-playing game. These role-playing games are generally considered canon adjacent, so it's unclear if Jerserra is indeed canon or just a character in the game. However, other elements of these role-playing games have been canonized in further material, such as in books, so it's entirely within the realm of possibility that Jerserra is canon. Jerserra was a member of the Nardithi Nightsisters, a sect of the Night Sister clan. This sect of Night Sisters was apparently still around by the time of the Empire, so it's unclear how they survived the massacre. It seems that there were multiple clans of witches on Dathomir besides the Night Sisters that we are familiar with. That being said, an Inquisitor of the Empire, with an unknown designation, traveled to Dathomir and discovered Jerserra and the Nardithi Nightsisters. This Inquisitor took Jerserra as her apprentice, but Jerserra eventually murdered the Inquisitor after learning enough about the Force and harnessing her powers. She then erased all traces of her existence and journeyed the galaxy on her own. I may do another separate video on all the differing Dathomiri clans. It had been alluded to and mentioned offhandedly in other material that they existed, but Tales of the Empire showed us much more concretely that there were other clans of witches on Dathomir besides the Night Sisters, led by Mother Talzin. For now though, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.